See to it that you sit comfortably. Notice the experience in the body. Notice what comes through the senses. And whatever comes, you just stay here. Attentive and completely anchored in the present moment. There's no particular experience to find in the present. Just notice what is. If there is longing for anything to happen, just notice the longing. Not by making an intellectual remark, but just notice with attention. And just see how the experience unfolds. If thoughts are coming, just let them come. Emotional content, physical sensations, pleasant or unpleasant, doesn't matter. You just recognize. You see that everything is moving. No need to hold on to any part of your experience, but you allow all of it. You don't have to make yourself into anything particular in the experience. You just allow your experience to come through you. And just see what this natural relationship with the experience is. You see all the waves of thoughts, bodily experiences, emotions, sensations. You see how everything just comes, stays for a while, and goes. This is the natural movement of everything, the law of nature, everything's impermanence. And through this impermanence in the relative, and through the experiencing of it, you realize that you are not the thing that is coming and going. You are the space in which everything arises, stays for a while, and goes. You're like the sky. No matter how many clouds there is in the sky, or if they're roaring with thunder, there is a storm or heavy rain, the sky is still the same. So you remain. And notice the depth of your watchfulness. Notice that even the thought, I, can be observed. The entire notion of the body and emotional content, it can all be watched. And the content's stickiness has to do with identification. You have to go along with the idea that you are someone that this thought can happen to. That identity is the root cause. of the suffering that Buddha referred to as dukkha, suffering through discontentment, the suffering of not being satisfied. And this identity gives rise to the whole idea that you are a separate entity and that there is something that will complete you. And if the mind is focused on the external, you will look there. And the looking itself, the questioning of one's happiness and how to fulfill it, is a relevant one. That question is valid. But when the search is external, you just go from thing to thing to thing. Maybe some things you have to really live through. Some, some things, some dreams of happiness could quite quickly turn to dust, and you see that they are nothing. And however frustrating this search might be sometimes, it is beautiful because it shows that everything comes from you. Time and time again, the universe conspires with us to show us how it is put together. Not so much through the intellect, but mainly through experiencing. Showing us the fleeting nature of it all. Showing us true impermanence. And if you come back again and again to this watchfulness, to be watching the play instead of always be in it, you realize that it is a play. And that the play is not personal. Your greatest gift is the awareness that you are. Not your talents, not your physical abilities, but this. The awareness, the present moment, whatever you want to call it. Now, and when you first start to investigate it, you might think that there is nothing much to it. Seems mostly like boredom and restlessness. But that is just the surface of identity. The more you observe, the easier it becomes. And if you're lucky, pokes a hole in your idea of what you are. You might feel confused. You might feel a bit uncertain. Because you start to notice that there is a depth behind this quick and shallow identification of me. That behind it is a living stillness. It doesn't want anything. It has no agenda. But it has the fragrance, playfulness, and love. And it's not a love that pick and chooses. It is a love that just loves. And there is nothing for you to do to attain this. You cannot muscle yourself forward. You have to melt into it. You have to relax into your own attention. That is as much as a doing it as I will give you. Because this quality, this stillness, is always here. It's not something foreign. It is you. You can aspire to be it, but all it will show you is that you're already it. You can open your eyes Move your body if you feel like it. Can I ask you, since you're here for the first time, um, have you practiced some non-dual meditation, any tradition?
Quite a few.
Okay. So you're not new to it? No, I don't. Okay. I'm just going to explain to people on the stream that you just said that you have tried Vipassana and what else? So,
Well, just like the general mantra.
okay, and mantras. Okay. But have you attended satsangs and like yes, okay. Is there any questions today? Yes. Thank you.
I feel like I always have a question.
Yes.
So I wonder a little bit, something I've been thinking about for a while is I think a lot of this work is about letting go of the idea of the person. And I find that's very liberating and all of that. I just wonder, I guess I'm sort of struggling with understanding how much do I sort of need to take care of the person? If, for example, I feel like I have some, okay, well, let's say in my, because of my upbringing, it's certain emotions are sort of, I find very difficult. I feel like I need to sort of like, I just wonder, like, do you understand the question I'm sort of
Yes.
fishing at here?
Yes.
How much do I need to sort of think of the person?
Yes.
How much should I let go?
I think I understand. The difficulty is with the first layer of the person, because if that layer is not accepted or expressed, then it can be very difficult because that will be an emotional stop usually. And for most people, that is too overwhelming to just sit with. You can be overwhelmed by your emotions, by the content that comes up connected to it, whatever it is. Or there can just be a very basic resistance to it, like this emotional resistance that does not allow the experience to fully express or to fully move, because there is like some tightness. So addressing these things are quite easy if you're open to it. There's not much to it, but you have to be willing to cry. You perhaps have to be willing to scream, to hit the pillow in the floor or on the bed really hard, because just to express what is suppressed. And early on, uh, when I explored like the first 10 years, I had this sense that something was not really expressed, but I didn't really know how to handle that. And then I came into meditation traditions where there was a lot of expression, and then it just very quickly. And also, if you do that kind of work, like these active meditations and these kind of things where you shake and scream and you express, there will come a point where you will feel done. So it's not, you should not have to do that like if you have to do it again and again, then the ego really builds something again and again. But if you're open to the expression of it, that first layer will go quite quickly. And it also will feel quite intuitive what to do. That's at least my experience. But I know that people also have went into therapy and had a good, because it just clarified things and they could let go more. But it's very our idea when it comes to the relative and how we relate to the world and our upbringing and all these things. We're so complex in that. So what works for one person might not at all work for the next one because just of our preferences. So that can just limit us in that. But if your intention, if your deep intention is to know yourself, then this will be unavoidable. You will come to the point where, okay, I have to express it. It will be so obvious to you. And I don't focus so often on those kind of expressions because there is so much of it. Like the spiritual community is filled with all that preparing stuff, like breath work and active meditation. There's so much of that. But the most important part in it is your intention. And that because I think that everyone has the deep longing to know themselves. They wouldn't call it that. They would say that they look for happiness, or I'm just lacking this and I need that in my life. And if I have more of this, if I have more money or better relationships or whatever, I would be happy. and and the beauty of the experience, as I talked in the guided meditation as well, is that we will not be satisfied by any external event. And we can find this some people find that very tragic when they start to notice that. But it can also be very, very beautiful because that means that you have to look at the source. You have to look at who is the one doing this projection time and time again, looking for something external. And when you start to notice that this separate identity, that has a feeling that it is something separate from the experience, from the world, and then you can really start to look. You can really start to question. And the greatest question we have is, who am I? Who is the source of this separateness from the experience? And maybe in meditation you have an experience of this deep stillness, but you have an idea that it is something external, that the deep stillness has come to you for a while, and then when you go out of your meditation session, it will leave you again. Because that is how it can be experienced. But this deep stillness that doesn't want anything, that has no preferences, no agenda, it is you. It's the depth of you. And The spiritual search, if we want to call it that, is just a bit confusing in the beginning. Because you don't really know what you're looking for. The things around meditation are not that clear. And if you have a great meditative experience, you get obsessed by it. I felt it, I know what I want it again. And that is not at all how it works. So you will again fail in that, be frustrated, and gonna give up this shit. What am I doing? Asking questions. Who am I? And even if you would stop it for a while, it will come sneaking back. Maybe you get scared of it, the depth of it. You start to see your old tendencies that is pushed under the surface, the vasanas. You see how they come creeping. And they might scare the shit out of you. And you're, okay, I'm not going to do this right now. And 6 months later, you're like, I think I'm going to meditate again. And the mind will say, but I don't remember what happened. We get so easily sidetracked by all those ideas. Yes. I have a question from Cecilia.
Can I talk like this?
Yes. You get applause.
Oh,
I think you're the first one talking on stream.
I'm always the first one talking.
What is your question?
So I wondered, when there's a sense of feeling that somebody, or that you're not fully understood, like whatever, it's really hard to describe. When people are understanding each other, we are always coming from our own experience, yes? And the more identified we are, the more connected we are to, I had this experience, and therefore we project onto others our experience or our perception of reality onto each other. And when I don't feel fully understood, is it then okay to just see that, okay, there's not a full like wavelength here of understanding? I mean, it's always okay, but then, you know, there's always the question to who is not feeling understood, right? So how, it's a difficult question to ask, but how far along is it okay to drag up that question? Because sometimes it's just a matter of fact that, okay, there is not an understanding here.
Yes. But there is, in most conversations, there's a very limited understanding between people. And if they have the same cultural references, they can understand each other okay. But when there is no identification, then the intimacy is complete, because then all you see in the other is yourself. But on the other end of the spectrum, there is, as you said, how much am I going to be trying to be understood? That's what you're asking.
No, it's not about the trying. It's more about seeing what happens in the situation and recognizing that if there is somebody inside of me not feeling understood and then trying to be understood, I guess what you're saying, or if there is just a of recognizing that here is not an understanding. Do you understand?
Yes, but it all boils down to who you think is misunderstood. Then that becomes a problem, because that people won't understand you. That is a given. And in some cases, will not be. You won't be able to meet at all, however good your intentions are, and however much you want to meet them. If there is, sometimes it's just not possible. There is no openness. There is nothing to be. And I talked about this before also. When I talk about these things, if I talk to someone who cannot hear them, it's like my words become difficult to say. It's like they have no receiver. And you might think that you come here and mainly I am talking, but I can only talk on the way that you can listen. And sometimes people say, "Oh, you just swayed into the perfect subject for me today." That is not that I am swaying for the perfect subject because I'm really good at guessing or something. It's just what is happening. And in all meetings, to be with that intuitive sense, and to see what is happening. Most people, when they're listening to other people, they already have an idea about what the reply is going to be. And this makes you be in your own agenda, in your own identity. Because it's so important what the next thing that I am going to say, that you don't listen anymore. And how can you meet someone who has that? And the other person might do the same thing. And you're cutting each other off, and you really. And I think that many people are scared of listening because then they feel like I'm the only one who's going to listen, and then people are just going to drain me because they're going to pile all their stuff onto me. And if that is all your relationships are, maybe you should. And it's also very beautiful when you connect with people like that you can connect with them with your heart. And I know that meditation on the surface level can sound like that you get a bit distant to things. You're just observing, you're not identifying with it. Nothing is really personal. All these things, the mind can take them and make them, okay, so you're cut off a little bit. But the interesting part is that the opposite is true. The less identified you are, the more intimate you can be. Because in identification, there's always fear. There's a protection of the I, of the self. So, and when you have to protect something, you have to always be a little bit on your toes, a little bit on guard. I have to check everyone. They're okay. If I can trust them.
Do you think that's why people are scared of meditation? Because they're scared of intimacy?
It's a very good question. and yes, but it's not not the not the intimacy of others, is the intimacy of yourself. Because what meditation does is that it brings about all the emotions that you have, all the suppressed things from your past or whatever it might be, and it presents them to you. And it says, how do you feel about this? Are you okay with this old memory? Of your father telling you that you're lazy, and are you okay with this old memory that your brother did this and this? Everything. And you let them come. And when you don't continue the old story of them, it starts to fade. It starts to weaken. It will come again and again and again. And if the vasanas go deep, they come many times. But when you don't react, every time it's going to be easier and easier. And in the end, they will feel like a whisper. They have no power because you're not attached to them.
Would you say that also to understand is to, maybe it's not the right way of phrasing it, but it contains like to forgive. To understand contains to forgive and to just understand, like,
Yes.
in a very wholesome, loving way.
Yes, but understand that when we talk about forgiving, it sounds like an action, but it is giving up a resistance to something. Because when you don't forgive, you have to uphold distance. If I tell you, Ulla, I don't forgive you, I'm all the time have to uphold that, and I have to remember that you are not forgiven. Because the natural state, if I would relax, would be to forgive you. So all these things, we fool ourselves with language sometimes because it sounds like some things are actions when they're actually non-actions or relaxation. And it also becomes clearer when you notice that you can really relax into things. A situation that might seem really tense, that seem to have some potency for chaos in your life. And you will notice that, oh, I can completely relax into this. And the unfoldings of it will unfold a little bit. And you notice that nothing happens to you.
If we react, we just get more of what we don't want, right?
Yes, we just continue the same old stream. Then we just continue the fearfulness, usually from our parents, what they taught us and how we respond in the same way. If we just react and react, and we can, if we are completely unaware, that we will just by default do that. If you have no sense of being with what is, that's why it changes everything. And it's the greatest thing that we have in our lives is awareness, because that is what you are. And everything else is pretending that you're not. And it sounds like this is the way I talk about it now. It sounds like everyone is super conscious of it and just playing a part, but it's usually completely through ignorance. It's through not seeing. That's why we take on the role time and time again of someone who is affected by something, and we see ourselves as a victim, or we suffer in some way, that we feel dissatisfied. And the only thing that this kind of work, if you want to call it that, needs from you is your sincerity. When I began with meditation, I was 23 and super ambitious. So I just thought, if I just practice a lot, I will reach the goal. Let's just go as hard as it. And I was in India and I did Vipassana retreats, and I lied on my second Vipassana retreat because you need a couple of weeks between them. And I just had like 1 week between them. So I said that and it was the same retreat place, but a new crew because they changed all the people. So I just lied on there and did a Vipassana retreat straight away again. And that just shows how I just wanted to, okay, come on, let's speed this up. We can do it a bit quicker. Yes, they want you to wait, but but in that very ambitious way of approaching meditation, I noticed that it became so dry, and it became so difficult and so frustrating. Because if you have this strong identity of the doer, this is going to achieve something, then meditation, then you will hit a brick wall. And that is, I didn't understand it at the time, but that is the beauty of it. That's exactly how it works. It's like going in with the idea, I'm going to destroy the ego. Exactly. An ambitious 24-year-old. And in many traditions, they might mention it, but it's not a strong emphasis on who is the meditator. And I think that is the most important question. Who is the one trying to achieve all these things? Who wants the spiritual experience? Who wants enlightenment? And I enjoyed so much the time that I spent with my guru because it was so normal. We did all things. We ate breakfast and took a walk in the mountains. And in the evening, Swami usually watched the news. And we asked him what he thought about current events happening in the world. And he always had funny takes on things.
Was his answer?
Uh, it is like his approach was, I want to see what people look at so I can talk with them about normal things and to be relevant like that. And also, my guru is pictured there in the middle, and he is also there on the wall. He did a lot of work which was just like counseling families who are in crisis and these kind of things, just talking to them calmly. It wouldn't be what we would consider like spiritual work. It was not. Of course, also he had the sadhaks that came, people who practiced a lot, and they asked questions about the self and all these things, like what I was part of there. But most of the time was just like in the community, supporting people in crisis or like very normal things. And I enjoy that a lot. Because when you have deep experience of the stillness, you will find it overwhelming at first. You will say that it's too much, or that it's the most beautiful thing I ever experienced. And all these things distance you from the experience. You make it into something. You make it into a wow moment, or a too much moment, and all these things are a little bit on the same scale. Also, if you get really frightened by it, it's again you being frightened by the experience. And when it gets to be very ordinary, that silence comes to you when you walk in the park, when you do your dishes, when you hang your laundry. Because it's always possible. It doesn't have to be any spectacular setting, or we so much look for that. And so many people have their hopes to that. They look at beautifully curated Instagram posts and yes, when my life is going to be like this and I can take this kind of picture, then I will be in this beautiful retreat center in some beautiful exotic place. But those are just the ideas. The ordinary, every day, every moment. Your bathroom break when you're at work. Just notice. To allow the spaciousness. To again have the deep recognition that everything is here. And meditation won't make you special. It will make you the same as everyone else.
What is God, and is there any kind of personality in that?
Oh, it's a very, very delicate subject. like many words, I think this is one of the words that has the most varied explanations of what it is if you would ask different people. So it can be so many things. But to me, God and the present moment is the same. When I hear different teachings, when they use the word God, this is what I hear. And I spoke to a Christian woman in Stockholm when I was there a couple of years ago, and she didn't come to her husband came to my talks, but she had been to church, and we talked about the relationship with God. And she said, yes, it's not so much a relationship in words that I have with God. It's just that I am with God. And I thought that was so beautiful. I got very happy of that way of talking about it. Because it's often the idea that there is an external God and that you ask for things. Please make my grandmother's illness go away. Please, this and this. Or that you just pray for things in your life. But to make it too much of an entity is also easily creates this very strong separation. And in some religions, it's also that they say that they are the gatekeepers of God, that you had to go through someone or something to reach, and this is the only way. And these paths, I think, are very much made to control people. They don't have the interest of freedom at heart, the one who created that kind of idea. And I understand also how that can be appealing to some, to use something that many believe in as a tool like that. But it's not, it doesn't create freedom. And I remember I got a question once, one of the courses that I held was a man who asked, if you have to believe anything to come to my course. I think he thought that he had to believe in some Buddhist god or Hindu deity or something. And I think I wrote an answer that meditation should be the opposite of belief. Because the belief, even if you would say, I don't have any belief, you believe in a lot of things. The idea of yourself, the idea of where the best knowledge is, the idea of truth, the idea of so many things. So what meditation does is that it expels your beliefs. That you start to look at things as they are. And your interest will start to be in looking at things as they are. And it doesn't mean that you you will come to some arrogant conclusion of exactly knowing. The beauty of it is that you will accept the fact that you cannot know. That there is not anything to keep. And that's a very humbling fact and very beautiful thing.
Do you ever pray?
I think prayer is also dependent on what you. If you pray for stuff, but if you have a prayer of the heart, then the most prayer-like thing that has ever come to me was when I was with Swami. The second time I was there, and I just felt so stuck. I didn't know what to do. I felt a bit. I just felt lost. Despair is too strong a word, but I felt like, what is going on? And then I said, you have to show me. And I was talking to the universe. You have to show me where this is heading. I don't understand right now. And that I would say is a prayer. And it very quickly revealed itself. But it's just a question of definition. But you could call that prayer, I think. All religions have some kind of basis in deep spirituality, it seems. And it's very common if traditions go on for a long time that they get very, gets to be a lot of politics in it. There's a lot of opinions on how to best preserve a tradition, all these things. And there are so many ashrams in India where there has been a great master, and you come when the master is gone, and they try to uphold as best they can. That's what it feels like. They just try to uphold the tradition as best they can. And like the words of the master becomes really like laws. And it seems to be very difficult to avoid that, to have this openness and freshness in it. It often feels like a museum.
But sometimes the presence is still there, right?
Yes, and if you're connected with it, it can be profound. But um, if you stay there often, you will feel like this part of it is beautiful, but there are so many policies and there are so many things around it. And I think that it's supposed to be fresh. It's not like spiritual nostalgia. Nostalgia is not a thing. Even if you enjoy masters that are no longer in their body, there should be a freshness to them. It should resonate with the living stillness inside of you. And you will be drawn to what appeals to some part of you, how their path in. To me, the most surprising one has been Dattatreya, because it so many shapes and forms he just came to me. The strangest one is the statue that I bought on Bali, which was labeled as a Trimurti statue. And I just thought it was beautiful, and I bought it. And the woman in the store said, "Yes, wow, you picked one of the oldest pieces that we have." And Dattatreya had come to me in many forms before, and then I read some text about Trimurti, and it said Trimurti, also known as Dattatreya. So again, I had a picture of Dattatreya. And at that time, I didn't know anything about Avadhuta Gita, which is a beautiful text on Vedanta. It's a thin one. If you don't like reading much, it's perfect. It appealed to me a lot. And it's such beautiful verses. And it's called the Avadhuta Gita of Dattatreya. So I didn't know all those connections, but he still just pushed himself onto me somehow. And people often ask me how if they're going to go left or right on their spiritual path, and everything is just revealed. Just trust, and just okay. I am longing to express my inner feelings that are suppressed. Just stay with that, and it will show you how to be with that. Everything is like that. And as I also said about the prayer, when you come to the point where you feel, I have no idea where to go from here, I just feel stuck. It's very difficult. Everything is very frustrating. As soon as you trust, the universe wants nothing but showing you how to see yourself. Awareness seems to be very curious about itself. Yes.
So sometimes I get a bit confused between like ego or maybe something else. I guess I'm, as you probably understand, I'm sort of finding it difficult to sort of understand sort of where the human is, where the relative is, as opposed to the absolute, as it were. So what I mean is, I have a longing often for some kind of experience, like I listen to Ramana, Maharshi or something, and I'll just be like, I'll just have it will feel really good. You know, I feel like I'll have this sort of spiritual experience. But at the same time, obviously, I'm aware that is this just ego? Is this just longing? And then I find this sort of like part of me is saying like, no, you know, you want this go for it. You know, just do it. Don't be afraid. And then I sort of try and second guess myself, maybe saying, no, it's just ego. I need to just sit with this feeling that I should have this. And then it just gets very cognitive for me. This is where I sort of, my mind starts thinking, what's what? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. And there are two things I want to say about it. The first thing is, this is the perfect time to do self-inquiry. Because all that confusion just comes from who is the one trying to have an experience. You have to go back to the source. And I know that it's very alluring and it's very easy to go into this intellectual questions and trying to figure it out. If you're that kind of person, it's very easy to just pile things on top of each other and like from this angle, but this teacher said da 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 da, and you can be very much like that. But at some point you just have to, and that is you just have to let it be open. And for that to be, you have to question the egoic self. You have to really hone in on it and ask sincerely, who is there? Who is the one looking? Who is the one trying? But there is one aspect that I feel is very often neglected, especially in non-dual settings, and that is the aspect of longing. Because I can just take an example that I experienced. I enjoy very much a song that's from the Paramahansa Yogananda tradition, Door of My Heart. Anyone heard this one? Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come for me? Wilt thou come, just for once come for me? It's like it's a longing for God. It's a longing for unity. It's a longing for the essence of life itself. And we were singing bhajans and in India, and there was some people in this group that said, "Oh, we don't like to sing this one because it just reinforced the idea that you're separate from God." But I think that is ridiculous because the longing is a part of it, of the spiritual search. It is a search, it is a longing. And to express that longing, I think, is a beautiful thing. And you shouldn't be afraid of it. And even though in a way it's not true, it's also the universe way. But then you could say also my anger, my identification with my anger is not true. But you still have to deal with it on the relative level and express it for it to somehow be done. And also, if you can just sing your longing, it's a beautiful thing. And there is acceptance of the longing in that. Otherwise, there is resistance to longing. So it's so easy to go into these traps of like, I have a more pure idea of how to approach. And it's quite common. So just be with what is, which is all that Ramana talks about.
And let the body mind be as it is as well.
Yes, let it, the expressions that are there, they are there because they want to be expressed. So when you feel, even when you feel your darkest anxiety or that you are completely wrong or whatever it could be, those are still expressions that can be allowed and accepted and can be felt. And if you can be with them, they won't be big monsters But if you resist them, they will crawl under your bed and they will scare you every time.
So sometimes I get like this self-inquiry and this question, who am I? Like sometimes I just feel it in that community or people that kind of practice it, hear it. Sometimes it's, yeah, I mean, it feels, it can be too intellectual and 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 and, and well, I'm not sure it is like that for everyone, but it's just like going looking for the source of everything, and like the source of the thoughts or the source of the
Mm.
body. Source. I mean, sometimes that kind of how they presented it is. I mean, there is room for a misinterpretation. I guess it's always room for misinterpretation, obviously, but I mean, it could have come with more clarity. That's sometimes what I want to say, because because it seems like it's
There, if we want to talk about it very clearly, there are like mainly two approaches, and it's the intellectual approach or the devotional approach. And usually, the intellectual approach needs more of the devotional, and the devotional approach need to be more questioning and a little bit of the intellectual approach. So these approaches are really good if they go together. But the one who says, I don't want any of this fluffy stuff, I don't want any talk about God or nothing of that, then you also limit yourself in your trust, because there has to be some part of you that has to be willing to walk into the unknown. And if you want every step to be intellectually logical, you will never be able to let go, because there's so much control and so much tension in that. And from my experience, that is the best thing that that person can do, even though it will be a lot of resistance, is to go more devotional. And that person might feel, I'm going to be one of those crazy religious people if I go this. I'm going to sing songs and do stupid dances and ceremonies. What is happening? but all those things, doing the ceremonies and singing the songs and doing the dances, they're all done with devotion, if they're really done. And on the other path is the devotional person that is always super trusting with everyone, because in that person's heart, everyone is already God. So you can just trust anyone. And they're so loving and they're so beautiful, but they get torn apart by all the egoic minds out there that just uses them and exploits them in ways. So when they question how to approach this, it becomes much more leveled. And their devotion can find a place which is really spiritual and not getting confused with all the things that are in the relative fragmented separateness. We often come to this subject when you ask questions, Ola. Yeah.
Now it was you.
That's what you think.
Actually, I wanted to say something, and is I mean, I think this visualization and to have gurus and and I used power animals sometimes too. I just think that can be really beneficial. And I mean, I can see the connection between them because it kind of draws out or helps you to come in contact with with that aspect that you.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yes, whatever works. Did you have a question also? No, you were reaching for the mic. You're just trying to find the right order here.
About the question. Yeah. Okay, so because I think it's a little bit similar. I was thinking about because you started saying about the universe that opens the path for us, and it's there. It's we just have to relax and go with the flow generally. But I think I find it quite confusing sometimes. If it is my intuition and I should feel into it and I should go with it and trust it, or if it is like you were saying as well, like just my mind that is showing me a path. And then I was taught to like you were saying as well, to look for the source, and I was taught in a way to like find the stillness in the heart and go there and see if it is true path, if it is my intuition,
Yes.
if it's something else. But I find it quite like hard on an everyday base to do it. Like it's not that often I'm in a place where I can actually go into my heart, like truly, and really feel what's in there. And maybe it would be easier in ashram and when you're like in a little bit of a bubble.
Yes.
But then in a real world, it's really hard. So I was thinking if you have like some, what's your experience and how to find
Yes.
that source?
Yes. One thing to be aware of in your practice is if you do a practice and what effect it really has on you. Because many practices and many approaches just works when you do the practice. And if you stop the practice, it feels like you just go back to what you were before. There is no change in depth. But on the surface, you can. So, this is, I would say, this is one of the biggest dangers with meditation, that you can have a very superficial practice for a long time and say it has a great effect on me. But if you would ever quit, you would just go back. So, in my experience, there came a point where I started to lose interest in everything that just made it feel nicer on the surface for a while. And I started to be interested in what does permanently change the experience. What does permanently change my relationship to the whole? And I noticed the only thing that had that effect, that really made my mind more quiet, was when the identity was questioned. When I started to look at the source of who am I? Because I did so many practices, both yoga practices and vipassana for many years, and I noticed that most of these practices were very much, I felt great, and if I quit them, I felt anxious again. I started to worry again. Everything felt like it came back if I took a break from it. It's like, okay, so I have to be addicted to this like an addict. Is this my life? So and I felt deep inside me somewhere that there has to be something that really changes the fundamental parts of it. And when I came into self-inquiry and uh, all the time coming back to the source, whatever you want to call it, to do the sense of I, because that is also what it is, the deepest sense of I. I did that time and time again. Then I started to notice a big change. And one of the biggest changes for me was I'd always been very intellectually driven, very logical person. I like complex systems. I like things like that. So for my mind, the biggest leap was the leap of faith. To go into trusting that the universe knows what it's doing and I don't have to be in control. And that scared me as so much. And I had all these feelings because I was in the yoga and meditation community, and I saw people singing kirtan and bhajans and doing all this stuff that I loathed, that I did not like. And I understood that, okay, I have to go into that. And that those moments will really test how committed you are to your search, because it's not a search like, yes, I want the search to be like this. That was how I approached it. I want the search to be like this, and then the search wanted to go like this, and then like, okay, but this is the only way forward. This is the only way that it can continue. So do I want to go that path that to me felt very religious, and all those things that I I I, I had difficulties with. I saw a very non-religious meditation approach. I liked all these very science-based meditation approaches. And once I took that step, that I would say was the biggest leap in just making my mind quiet. And from that point, and I've told this story many times, I met a beautiful yogi who is no longer in his body, but it's called Raya Krishna, and he asked me, "How is your meditation practice going?" And I said, "It's going good, but I still worry a lot." And he just said, "Ah, that's just lack of faith." And it was like he just presented me very, very clearly with the piece of the puzzle that was missing. I was like, "It is this," and the and the way that he so casually said that struck me so hard, because he was from India, and for him it's like in his mother's milk to trust the universe. So for him it was like, this is the most obvious thing. Where how can you be missing this part? That it was comes first. But um and that is how the universe operates with those things. And that's why I say that sincerity is the most important part, because then someone will come and just present it to you. And if you're too thick to take it in, it will be presented to you even like this, like this. How do you like it? The universe will really shove it in your face. So that's my experience. And when those, I would say that those are that you need the part that is questioning, what is happiness, what is this life, what is that is needed, and the logical understanding of why would meditation practice be good. I think that makes you comfortable. But the other part of it is also to have faith, because you cannot know. So when those two are there, you have the foundation for, then your practice really starts. Because before that, you're just looking around a little bit. You're checking things, trying this, trying that. But when those things are anchored, you can really, it's so much easier to devote yourself to the practice. I don't think I could ever have started living in an ashram before that point, because I wouldn't really see the purpose of it. I still went on retreats, but like these these larger commitments to be like 4 months, 7 hours a day practicing. I would never go into that, I think, before, because it would just be too much. So, and also with the to be enough questioning, if you practice something and you feel no change, there's still this worry, you're still fearful of things, the mind is still very, very busy, it doesn't seem to change, then the question would be, why haven't you asked your teacher what's going on? And as Ramana so beautifully put it, when the physical teacher is needed, the teacher will appear. And our experience has the potential for so much peace. And with our ignorance, we self-sabotage, you could say. We're dependent of things. We're dependent on ideas. We want to be liked. We want to be loved. We want to feel okay. We don't want to be too lonely. And all those fears can pull us in all kind of directions, especially those big ones. But you can live a very ordinary life, do very ordinary things, and still find so much beauty in every moment. It has nothing to do with external experiences. It has nothing to do with how much gold you have in your purse. The quality of life is, can you be with the present moment as it is? Can you be in your intimate relationships with your friends and your family and your partner and really be in love? Not the love that pick and chooses, but the love that really accepts, really listens. And that you are not excluded in that love. You are not something separate. You don't have to love others, but you treat yourself like shit. You are the same. This is also very common. And I understand all the confusion. It's all right. It's a good place actually to be confused. Because if you think that you know, you're in a much worse place. Because there is so much stiffness in that. And in the deepest acceptance, there is just the acceptance that you cannot really know that what you are, like a definition. You cannot hold it in your hand as a thing. You cannot pitch it in 1 minute. You are the space in which everything unfolds. So how can you know what you are?
a question about, like, if I inquire, like, and I want to know truth, then, or is it, or something else, like I want to express my suppressed emotions or whatever, and if I'm really sincere with, like if I really inquire into that, I inquire like through that intention too, right? Like nothing through that as well. Like that's possible. That's what I'm asking. Obviously, I don't know. I'm looking carefully for you.
I love you, Ola. Hmm. It's so, I think that the feeling that many people have is that, okay, I see how freedom is possible. And maybe you met some people that you find very, very free, or do you understand the possibility of it? But then there's a different part of it, which is like, but what happens if that the freedom would apply to me? Would I even feel worthy? Could you take it? If there's just space, and there's just all these there's just this deep field of love that comes with that space. Could you allow it? Could you allow it to completely fill you up? However overwhelming or intense or whatever it feels. I think that you would be surprised how scared you are of the light. You think that you're scared of your fears, darkness, things going wrong. But most people are even more scared that beauty and love and all this deep stillness will just completely take them over. Can you accept that? Can you be with that? And will you think that you are worthy of that? If you sense the stillness, this is a great meditation to do. Just be with this question. Can I take the light? And I think many will be surprised that they're resistant to it. That they're resisting this very, very free experience.
I think I've heard you saying like ceremonies and rituals can be of certain value if we regard it as something to do with devotion. But haven't we heard, for example, Krishnamurti say in a harsh way more than once that things like that are just nonsense?
Yes, but everything depends on where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Because you often sometimes you have to understand when a teacher has a certain path into something, it is because also of their relative and what kind of experiences they have. Because when we talk from that standpoint. So from Krishnamurti's standpoint, he sees an India where there's so much blind belief in different old traditions, and the tradition is so strict and so hard that, and that's the world that he grew up in. So he is very like, "Ah, it's all nonsense." But for me, who grew up with the opposite, you understand, that gets to be a path into devotional, uh, the devotional recognition of things. So that is also just, I know that these things can be confusing, that different teachers say different things, but it sometimes just has to do with the context of that. Yes.
But do you still think he had, like, he benefited from when you said something about trust from mother? They have it like from their, like, from the first part of life. Do you think he still benefited from that?
Maybe he had to redefine what that is, because the trust also that many religions instill can be very relative, and you're very separate from the God, and you're just a sinner, or whatever you want, like, however you like to phrase it. Then it can be very dualistic approach to God, and then you don't have much trust. But some people take, they just naturally understand that part in the religion, even though people around them might have a different, they might say, no, but my approach to God is more like this woman that I talked to, that said that she converses with God in stillness. That is, I don't think that is someone have told her that is her experience, or that is her approach. She just naturally had that approach, even though the church might, or the priest might talk about different things. Mm. Did I answer your question? Yeah, good. You should sing something, at least one. Some Sanskrit nonsense. Sana, which one? Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om Namah. Thank you. Thank you.